welcome back to my channel, Beautiful Minutia. If you're new here, my name is Tiffany, and today I want to talk to you about some of my favorite things. I've been doing these videos for a while, where quarterly I will talk about what I've been eating, what I've been reading, what I've been watching, what games I've been playing, all the things that are just like favorite things that I really want to share with you. So it's just a fun way to share all the things. So I will have timestamps in the description below. So if you're only interested in books, you can skip right to that section. If you're interested in certain things, not other things, it'll help you just kind of skip around if you want to do that. So let's start out with food. I usually start out with food and drink. I don't think I really have anything exciting to share drink-wise, but food-wise, I do have a couple of recipes that I really want to talk about. The first one is for Valentine's Day this year to make something special. I made like a sheet pan orange chicken that was so easy and so delicious, and it also had broccoli on there too. So the broccoli and the chicken were both roasted in the orange chicken sauce, and it was just, oh my gosh, so delicious. I also found this recipe for air fryer chicken, and I found this recipe as a result of another recipe. So one of my favorite food blogs is Pinch of Yum, and they had done a recipe called Marry Me Chicken that apparently is so good that if you make this for someone, they're gonna wanna marry you because it's so delicious. In the recipe, which first of all, that's a really good recipe, so I'll link that too. But in the recipe is a recipe for a batch of air fryer chicken. And so there's this rub that you put on the chicken and then you air fry it for like 10 minutes. And it is the most juicy, delicious chicken breast I've ever had, ever. So I made it for that recipe, but then also really enjoyed it for salads and other things like that, or just as, you know, part of a meal, just eating this chicken. And it's so delicious, so easy, and I have the hardest time not drying out chicken breast, and this turns out perfect every single time. Lastly, I wanted to talk about this thing that I actually saw on Instagram. There's a girl that I follow on there called Jen Eats Good, and she does these grocery challenges where she buys enough groceries for dinner for like the whole week for like under $60 or under $50 depending on which one she does, and then she uses up all those ingredients. And I don't know if you're like me, but sometimes I will buy something like some sort of vegetable or something and use part of it for a recipe, and then the rest of it I don't get to. And so this is something where it actually has you use up all of the things that you buy, and it's enough to make 5 dinners for the whole week. So she does it on Instagram, like I said, but she does have an actual website. So I'll link the website that has like the list of the different grocery challenges that she's done. She does them seasonally. So if you pick one that she's done in spring, then it's going to include seasonally available vegetables that are typically cheaper during that time period, as opposed to, I don't know, this is a weird example, but if it was a recipe that called for like watermelon in the winter, it's going to be a lot more expensive to buy watermelon in the winter than it is in the summer when it's actually in season. So she purposely focuses on in-season produce and that kind of stuff. And she shops, I think, at Whole Foods and Trader Joe's are usually the places that she goes. And I actually typically shop at Aldi, which is a little bit cheaper than both of those places. So I can get away with spending even less than what she typically spends on her grocery haul. So I have thought that that's really fun. It's a really good challenge, and I've enjoyed all of the recipes that I've tried from her. All right, let's move on to entertainment. I don't have a lot to share with you in terms of watching things. Usually I have like shows I'm watching or whatever. I have one show that I stopped watching, and then like one show that I'm currently watching with my husband, and we're over halfway through, but that's like the only thing that I'm currently watching. I have a lot more to share with you in terms of music, because I feel like first quarter of the year was a really good musical like K-pop comeback time. I'm very into K-pop, so we had comebacks from Twice and from ITZY and probably some other people too, but like those were probably some of the main ones that we listened to. And I listen to K-pop a lot with my daughter, and ITZY is like one of our favorite groups, and we loved their Born to Be comeback. I actually talked about it a little bit in my Feb Regency tag video because it was talking about entertainment, one of the questions in there, and like the choreography for Born to Be is just insane. So that was something that I really enjoyed. But my daughter and I have both gotten into ATEEZ and Stray Kids recently. ATEEZ a little bit more, and we are just enjoying them so much. Their sound is very different from a typical K-pop boy band because they definitely lean more into the hip hop side of things. and we just really like them. ATEEZ actually just performed at Coachella and was the very first K-pop boy group ever invited to come and perform at Coachella. So that was kind of historical and really cool that they were able to be a part of that. They actually had 3 Korean groups that were invited to be part of Coachella this year. Last year they had Blackpink, and that was the first K-pop group ever there. This year they had LE SSERAFIM and ATEEZ, and then they also had a group called The Rose, which is actually a legit band. Like, they play instruments. I think they're like an alt-rock band, maybe, but I haven't looked into them. So anyways, that was really cool. Although technically Coachella was in April, so that was technically second quarter, but it piggybacks off of our just love for ATEEZ and being so excited to see them get some of the recognition that they deserve. I'll link some of my favorite ATEEZ songs and performance videos below. I think what really kicked me off was listening to We Love Jenny's playlist, and Wonderland was on there, and that really helped kick me off. But before that, my dear friend Christy has been slowly, I joked with her and said she's been slowly grooming me to become an ATEEZ fan, because she's been sending me clips and videos for like a year now, and now I am one. So we're fangirling over all the ATEEZ things together, and that is so fun. But before I listened to Jenny's playlist that had Wonderland on it, Christy had sent me Crazy Form, which is such a good hype song, and that's what I listen to K-pop for, is for the hype. Like, I enjoy the slower songs, I think the vocals are beautiful, but when I'm listening to K-pop, I'm looking for something to perk me up and give me energy when I'm cleaning or when I'm driving or when I'm doing things. Like, K-pop is like my hype music, and so Crazy Form is totally a hype song, but there's quite a few that I've really enjoyed. I think one of my favorites right now is probably Wave, and I just love the choreography of that one. But there's a performance video where they're just goofing off on stage that's super hilarious as well. But I just like, I'm really enjoying immersing myself as a baby ATEEZ. So video games, also under the entertainment umbrella. I did just recently put out a video of all the games that I played in first quarter, so if you're interested in all the games I played, go ahead and check that out, because obviously that's going to be more than I'm mentioning here. Very briefly, I'm just going to say that I restarted a farm for Stardew Valley and spent a lot of time really enjoying that in a very stressful time period of my life at the beginning of this year. So January and February, I spent a lot of time playing Stardew Valley, but that's not a new game to me. That was me replaying something that I just really loved. So a few new games that I have enjoyed. I've really loved Chicken Journey, which is a really cute, funny platforming puzzle solving game where you play as a chicken who's trying to find out the answer to the eternal question, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And so you're playing as the chicken, and you have to go on a journey to try to find these scrolls that will give you the answer. The pixel art is adorable and very fitting. The humor in it is so good. Like, you can talk to all these different chickens, frogs, owls, squirrels, different animals that you encounter, and they're just really funny. And so I'm really enjoying this. I've actually almost beat the game, but it's really fun little indie game. Another indie game I've really enjoyed is Roots of Pacha, which is a farming game, a Stone Age farming game. So you are playing as part of a tribe that's just moved to a new area, and you collaborate with your tribe to upgrade tools and to improve your lifestyle, and they come up with different inventions and things to help you cook certain things, or to be able to domesticate animals or domesticate seeds so that way they produce more. So different things like that that are really cool. Like, the premise of it is really interesting, and it's unique in that you're collaborating with your community, and I just thought that that was really cool. I think the festivals are really fun too, so that's a really fun indie game if you really like farming sims. It kind of has some unique things about it that make it stand out a little bit from the plethora of farming sims that are out there, but I really liked this one. I don't love it as much as Stardew Valley, but it was really fun. Here we are for the main event. Books, favorite books. It's probably why you're here, because it's a booktube channel. I'm actually having a terrific reading year. When I look at my reading journal, most of the books that I've read this year are 4 and 5 stars, so that's pretty cool. I've read over 30 books so far this year. I didn't count how many. I probably should have, because I could have thrown some stats in here, but I didn't do that. So I have read a wide variety of genres as well. I've read some fantasy, I've read some classics, I've read some sci-fi, I've read some horror, I've read some middle grade, I've read some YA, I've read quite a bit of nonfiction as well, a lot more than normal for me. So I've read a lot of things. So I could share a ton of books with you that I have absolutely loved, but I'm going to try to limit myself. I have 5 books that I'm going to talk about, but I have one honorable mention, and the honorable mention is Lord of the Rings. And it's an honorable mention because this is a reread for me. This was not a new book for me. I have read this entire trilogy a dozen times before this year, but it has been a really long time since I've read them. I reread all 3 books with my Patreon, and we had live Zoom discussions about them, and it was just such a joy and a delight to reread these, and it was just like, oh, it makes me so happy. And I feel like I can't talk about my favorites of the quarter without mentioning how much I really enjoyed rereading them. Okay, now moving on to other books that were not rereads for me. I think I have these written down in the order that I completed them, so these are not ranked in any sort of way. In February, I read The Vicar of Wakefield by Oliver Goldsmith. This is a story about a vicar who is living with his family, and I just love their family dynamic. They just really love each other, and then their world kind of falls apart. And I just thought that this was a really beautiful book about faith and love and family in the midst of adversity. And I just really loved the vicar as a character and just enjoyed him so much. This is a really short little classic that really packs a punch, or at least for me. It was almost a perfect 5-star read for me. I think I gave it like 4.5, because there were things at the end that not only were extremely convenient in how everything wrapped up, but it also was unsatisfying. So I did have a couple of little gripes with it, but overall my experience reading it was just wonderful and perfect. And I read it with Dia and Stephanie, which was even more wonderful. So enjoyed talking with them about everything while we were reading it. Also in February, I read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. This was my very first T. Kingfisher. I read it partly for We Love Jenny because Jenny really enjoyed T. Kingfisher, but I also read it as a Patreon recommendation because I do that every month on my Patreon, where I choose a book that one of them have recommended and do a spoilery vlog for them. So What Moves the Dead was the one that I read in February. And oh my goodness, I loved this book. This is actually a retelling of Edgar Allan Poe's The Fall of the House of Usher, which was my favorite Poe when I was a teenager. Now as an adult, I don't know if it's my very favorite anymore, but it's still in the top 5. I still really love it. So it was really fun to see kind of like the crossovers, the nods to The Fall of the House of Usher, and then the way that T. Kingfisher made What Moves the Dead her own. So there were some things that were very similar and some things that were totally different. And it was creepy in an unsettling kind of way. I'm like, this is my kind of horror. It was not like supernatural, over the top, like so creepy. It was just like very unsettling with some grotesqueness in the climax of the story. So that if you get grossed out super easily, you might not enjoy the ending of it, but I am a horror wimp and I actually really enjoyed it. Another book that I just adored was Daniel Deronda by George Eliot. I actually did a full-length, very long vlog of my experience reading this, and oh my goodness, I loved it so much. So this is a story of 2 people, Daniel and Gwendolyn, and we spend just as much time, if not more, with Gwendolyn than we do with Daniel, and they're very different in their personalities, but this story really just explores a lot about identity and community, and it brings the 2 of them together in a really deep and meaningful way. And I thought that the ending of this book was just so perfect. It's so beautiful, and that is what pushed it from a solid 4-star into the 5-star territory for me, because the ending was so satisfying and so beautiful, and I totally cried. My favorite middle grade that I read for middle grade March was The Labors of Hercules Beale by Gary D. Schmidt. I, at the same time, was rereading The Wednesday Wars with my daughter for school, and The Wednesday Wars is one of my favorite middle grades of all time. And so it was a joy and a delight to read The Labors of Hercules Beale, because there's a lot of similarities between the 2, where we're following a young boy starting middle school. Hercules Beale has different issues in his life than Colleen Hood does, the main character of The Wednesday Wars, because The Wednesday Wars takes place during the Vietnam War, so there's definitely different issues that are being tackled world there, and Hercules Beale is modern day. But it does the same kind of thing where you have a boy that is narrating the story to you in first person, and they're having issues with the teacher. And in the Wednesday Wars, the teacher is trying to teach the boy about Shakespeare, and in Hercules Beale, the teacher's trying to teach the boy about Greek mythology. So it kind of does some similar things, and actually the teacher in Hercules Beale was a side character in the Wednesday Wars, so that was a really fun connection as well. It was just, Gary D. Schmidt can make me laugh and cry so many times in a book. He did that in the Wednesday Wars, and The Labors of Hercules Beale was no exception. Also, I listened to quite a bit of this book, but not all of it, on audio, and the audiobook was excellent. The last book that I'm going to talk about is also one that I have already talked about on my channel in a video where I talked about my favorite books on prayer. I read With Christ in the School of Prayer by Andrew Murray, and this was a terrific book, all about prayer, as you can tell, and this was so wonderful and refreshing. It reframed the way I saw certain passages of scripture that I was really familiar with, and then solidified a lot of what I thought and believed on prayer. So it was a really good refresher, in addition to kind of also helping me grow and reframe things. The whole book is set around teachings that Christ specifically himself taught about prayer. So we are in the school of prayer and Christ is our teacher, and that was pretty much what the book was about. It has 31 daily readings, so it's easy to read it devotionally in a month that has 31 days. And it was just beautiful, wonderful, exactly what I needed. If you want to hear more details, check out that video with my favorite books on prayer. Well, those are some of my favorite things from the first quarter of 2024. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. What have been some of your favorite things? It could be things that you're eating, it could be shows you're watching, games you're playing, books you're reading, events or places you've gone, like just special memories, things that have been bringing you joy lately. I would love to hear all the things. And of course, if you have read or watched or any of the things that I have mentioned here, I'd love to chat with you about that in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like and also subscribe so you can continue to see more bookish content from me, and I will see you again next time.